Cinemajaw is sponsored by Overcast, an independent podcast app that embraces the open world of podcasting instead of locking it down. No exclusives, no premium content, no paywalls. Just a great podcast app for everyone. Get it for free in the App Store. And we thank them for their support. You're listening to Cinemajaw, the greatest movies podcast ever, recorded on location at Cards Against Humanity in Chicago. My name is Matt Kay, and with me is
Rod, the movie guy, and sitting inside the fish tank over there is producer Pat.
Hey guys, how's it going?
This week on Cinemajaw, Matt, it is our last recap show of 2019.
Thank God. Honestly, man, I'm done with it. On to the future.
I love this part. It's still slow in January for 2020, so it's still a good time to look back at 2019.
Right, and the Oscars have yet to come out, so we're still reviewing the 2019 batch of films, and a heck of a batch it was.
It is, and this is always a fun top 5 list to do. It is our top 5 favorite scenes from 2019.
Scenes from the movies?
Correct.
Okay, not movie like scenes. That time I was in the studio with my shirt off.
That was quite the scene. Yeah. I don't know if that was 2019.
No, I don't think it was. But yeah.
That was unreal, though.
But that did happen.
Our topic this week are top 5 movie scenes of 2019.
Right.
These can be comedies. These can be scares. Something that moved us or just that we were amazed how they pulled it off.
Okay.
Get thinking about that, Jawheads.
I'm stoked.
Yeah. To do a list like this, we got to have a great guest.
Indeed, yes. Coming back to the Jaw after a long hiatus, Mark Dujsik, fellow critic from Chicago, is back. He writes a blog called Mark Reviews Movies. We'll talk to him all about that.
Yes, can't wait to talk to Mark again. It has been way too long since we've had him back on the show. Besides that, we have more going on, don't we, Pat?
Yeah, we do, Ryan. In honor of the Oscars, we are playing Oscar Nominee Movie Trivia 2020 edition.
Ooh.
Sweet. And we have a review of Just Mercy.
Nice. Plus, we had promised the Jawheads last podcast, Matt, that we would take care of the December riddle. So we will do that this week as well on Cinemajaw.
We keep our promises here, Ryan.
We do. Plus, we should not forget, it is Robert Downey Jr. month here on Cinemajaw. All month of January, we're celebrating RDJ. So let's kick off this podcast with an interesting fact about Robert Downey Jr.
All right, this week's fact. After Robert Downey Jr. missed another required drug test in 1999, he was arrested once more. Despite Downey's lawyer assembling the same team of lawyers that successfully defended O.J. Simpson, Downey was sentenced to a 3-year prison term. At the time of the 1999 arrest, all of Downey's film projects had wrapped and were close to release. He had also been hired to provide the voice of the devil on the NBC animated television series God, the Devil, and Bob, but was fired when he failed to show up for rehearsals. After spending nearly a year in the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and in state prison, Robert Downey Jr., on condition of posting a $5,000 bail, was unexpectedly freed when a judge qualified him for early release.
He's had some ups and downs.
What's crazy is nowadays we think of today's Robert Downey Jr., and by today's, I mean the last 20 years of, Mr. Hollywood himself, sober, seems like a ideal candidate that you wouldn't mind bringing your kids to see him as Iron Man and somebody to look up to. But you listen to something like that, and we remember he was the Lindsay Lohan of our generation, Matt Kay.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, man. I was about to say, he's way more talented, but Lindsay Lohan's got a fair amount of talent, too, that has been unfortunately squandered. I'm glad RDJ got it back on track.
I am, too.
Because he's great.
Yeah, that's why we're celebrating him this month.
For sure. Maybe we should do a Lindsay Lohan month.
Oh, easy now, Matt. Easy.
Okay.
All right. Hey, before we bring in Mark, last episode we had a review of 1917 and a Cinema War looking at Nick Cage movies from the year 2000, and we ended up getting some fun feedback on both those things.
Yes, indeed. So it's time to reach into the mailbag. Darren Mordecai wrote us and said, Happy New Year, guys. Hope you had a nice break. Unlike Chicago being in winter, summer is certainly here in New Zealand. It was a tough end of the year with a volcano exploding on the coast not too far from where we live. However, the fires in Australia are having a far greater effect with red skies drifting across to us. Crazy. Just heard your review of 1917. Despite your potential misgivings on the film, Matt, I'm glad you gave it a high rating. As an ex-serviceman, I have a slightly different view. When our lone Lance Corporal finally makes it to his destination and gets an audience with the Colonel, Cumberbatch, this, for me, is a very key moment. Yes, the attack is called off. Yes, lives have been saved, but just for today. You can see the anguish in the Colonel's face. He has to know, and states, in another week, he will just be given some more stupid conflicting orders that will result in tragedy. I served under poor leadership and in hostile environments. To me, this single moment brought up overwhelming emotion. He transported me back to those days of poor leadership and superiors who have conflicted ideas. Yes, the loss of his friend's life is sad. I think the very way he died with little heroics was poignant. Helping an enemy and ends up getting stabbed shows the ridiculousness of war as a whole. The lone shot was very impressive. I've picked 3 or 4 spots for less obvious cuts, but nonetheless, still seamless. Brilliant movie, very moving. That was from Darren.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I did give the movie a little bit of guff, if you will, but only because, look, it's a technological achievement more so than a storytelling achievement. But nevertheless, the story was great, and oh my God, the visuals unparalleled almost.
I agree. We were all pretty high on it, you know?
Yeah.
But sometimes when you're reviewing a movie, you are nitpicking on certain things that didn't necessarily work for you. But I think all 3 of us were praising the film.
Right. I still gave it 4 jaws.
The other topic was Nick Cage Better 2000 movie. We went to Cinemajaw on, and that was Family Man versus Gone in 60 Seconds.
And I handily won that.
And you won that one, Matt Kay, and you were fighting for Gone in 60 Seconds. Well, Alyssa wrote in, and she said, hey, Cinemajaw guys, speaking of great, bad Nicolas Cage movies, I highly recommend Vampire's Kiss. If you haven't seen it, it's batshit ridiculous gem that shouldn't be missed, even though after you watch it, you'll wish you hadn't. Alyssa. And I had to look this up because I know I hadn't seen.
I don't remember this one at all.
Vampire's Kiss. Well, it came out in 1988. From what I can tell, he gets bit and he believes he's a vampire, and strange things starts happening. And he's like a Wall Street, New York guy, so he's rich. Well, I pulled up a clip, and now I've seen this particular clip in Nick Cage highlight reels all the time, especially in these reels where it's like Nick Cage freaking out. And I laugh.
I love those.
I laugh hysterically at this, and I had never known what movie this was from. So this clip that we have pulled up here is Nick Cage yelling at his secretary on how easy it is to file. Get a load of this.
Something. What could be easier? It's all alphabetical. You just put it in the right file according to alphabetical order. You know, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Huh? That's all you have to do.
I love that.
That sounds like an awesome premise for a movie, man.
So now I figured it out. Thank you so much, Alyssa. It comes from Vampire's Kiss. This is written down in my journal. I am going to watch this one.
Hey, speaking of forgotten vampire movies, do you remember Once Bitten?
No.
Oh, wow. Check it out. An early Jim Carrey film from before he was famous. It's kind of like a teen sex comedy with vampires and a very young Jim Carrey.
Wow. Might have to give it a spin.
I think it's worth it. I mean, especially if you're a Jim Carrey completist.
And who isn't? I know our next guy is. Our guest here, Mark Dujsik, is, we've had a slew of critics on here as we've been recapping 2019. Let's go over it here, Matt Kay. We had Brian Tallarico. Mm-hmm. We had Pamela Powell.
Indeed.
And last week we had on David J. Foley. Mm-hmm. I kid you not, Jawheads, none of them see as many movies in a calendar year as our next guest. Mark Dujsik writes reviews for Mark Reviews Movies for over 10 years now. He is a member of the Chicago Film Critics Association. Mark Dujsik, welcome back to Cinemajaw.
It's good to be back. I like the new digs.
Yes.
I'm just going to say it because it's been a long time.
Yeah, I believe the last time we had John, we were still in the basement of Mother's?
Yes.
Yeah,
in the back room.
Right.
Wait,
right.
it is the basement.
It is the basement.
Yeah, it's the bar's the basement.
Right.
That was fine.
It's been a long time. It has been a long time. But yes, the new studio, it's fun talking movies in here.
I like it. I like it a lot.
Now, I wasn't joking when I say you see the most movies. As people that I know, and we know a lot of critics that we go to these screenings and we have a lot of people come in here, I always say the guy I know personally that watches the most movies in a calendar year is Mark Dujsik. Just to give Jawheads an idea.
Oh, boy.
Last year, I logged in 165 films on Letterboxd.
Mark is shaking his head like you're an amateur.
Slacker, he says. Get a load of this, Jawheads. How many movies did you watch in 2019?
400 plus.
Jesus. 400.
400 plus.
How many of those were any good?
About half.
Okay.
Maybe a little less than half.
400.
It was 400. Do you have it pulled up?
I don't.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't.
It was like 420 something, I think.
My goodness.
I mean, so where would you get the stats? Like on Letterboxd?
On my Letterboxd, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's. I have a year in review section on my Letterboxd, and it'll tell you how many I've watched.
So you're watching like literally everything. So
I'm trying to.
Okay, just to give Jawheads an idea, all of us as film critics get a lot of emails from lesser known studios, let's say. A lot of it is straight to Netflix, if they're lucky, kind of garbage. Slasher movies, really, really bad comedies, things of this nature.
Yes.
And you're watching all those.
I am watching those. Wow. I know. As long as it got a theatrical release, I will watch it.
Okay, so you don't watch the ones that don't get a...
No, yeah. If it's going like right to on demand or only on Netflix or only on Prime, I won't bother because then I would really lose it. But
So you didn't watch The Irishman?
I did watch that had a theatrical release.
Yeah,
Come on.
It did.
Yeah.
And also if it had, Scorsese, I'd probably make an exception.
Right.
Even if it had just gone to Netflix.
But if a movie has, and a lot of these smaller movies might do like a weekend or so in the theaters, and then it's on digital.
Yeah.
Those you're still trying to review.
I'm trying to. Sometimes I feel fooled because it's like, I'll review something and it had a theatrical release like in New York or LA, and then like 5 days later, it's on DVD now. Like, I could have skipped that. But oh well. Because it wouldn't have been that big a deal. I mean, you find some gems though. There's a couple years ago, I have to go back a couple of years. There was a movie that I saw called The Girl with All the Gifts.
Yes.
That was like on my top 10 list that year. And if I hadn't been doing, hey, I'm going to try to watch everything, I would have missed that movie. And it was on my top 10 list. I love that. And
I agree. Sitting next to Mark at some of the screenings, I'll ask him like, hey, you got any suggestions? And he'll throw a few at me, be it Thunder Road, from a year or two ago. And they're movies that aren't on other people's, lists or radars, and you'll throw one at me that I'll go check out, and I'm like, yeah, that Mark knows what he's talking about.
So
I try to.
I'm still floored by these stats here. So if you're watching 400 films in a calendar year, you must be watching one a day at least, right? I mean, more than one a day.
Okay, so the other stat that I wish I hadn't read on Letterboxd is that it tells you how many hours you were watching movies, and that was just, and again, this is just for like releases from last year. And I did the math, and it came out to I watched a month's worth of movies.
So that's a month of
a month of my year was watching movies.
That's not so bad.
It's not terrible, but
No.
I kind of wish I hadn't had that perspective on it. But I mean, what are you going to do?
Probably gave a month of my year to Fortnite.
But
see, it's about what you love.
Yeah.
But you watch some, say, on a weekend, you might be able to plow through 3 or 4 movies.
And I do, much to the chagrin of my wife. I got married while I was on hiatus from the show, by the way. That's how long it's been. But
Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been a year, but but still, I mean, I will like sit down and watch 3 or 4 movies over a weekend just to get it done and have it writing time set up for the week, and that's how I do it.
That's your one and only vice, though, right?
It
I mean,
is.
you're not like reading a ton of books and like, I don't know, whitewater rafting.
No,
this is
nothing
your
like
hobby.
that.
This is your passion.
This is my passion, and my vice, I guess, would be playing some video games on the weekend, and that's about it when I'm not watching movies, like at night. And yeah, I love doing it. I love doing
It's
it.
impressive.
That's awesome.
You have to love doing it, otherwise you'd never be able to do anything like this.
Here we are as well, 10 years later.
The way I look at it, and I kind of miss this, but back in the day when I was growing up and started looking at movie reviews, it was always Siskel and Ebert at the Tribune and the Sun-Times, and they reviewed everything. It was just that there were a lot fewer movies coming out back then.
Right.
And I always looked at it if I'm running my site, I want it to be kind of like that old school, like you have one voice doing everything that's coming out and at least have it consistent. I love like what they're doing at RogerEbert.com, which I contribute to now. Another thing that came up while I was gone from here, where it's multiple voices and everything. But I also like the idea that it just one person and you kind of can get to know the person and get the voice and the thoughts and the opinions and all that, and you get an idea. And if that's kind of how I see it. I just miss the old daily newspaper run of how critics were. And now, we still have, Michael Phillips here and some other ones, but a lot of it's going to the websites who are just multiple voices across the board. And there's some consistency, but not total consistency.
Right. You got to check the byline.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I see it.
Sure. So for the jawheads that want to check out your site, the best place to do so online.
MarkReviewsMovies.com. Twitter at MarkReviews, Letterboxd, just my name, Mark Dujsik, Dujsik. And yes, I think that's it.
All right. Well, we'll put all the links in the show notes as well.
What about your Twitter handle? I know you're
at Mark Reviews.
There you go.
He
Mark
mentioned
Reviews.
it. I mentioned it,
I
Brian.
did.
That's
I was
good.
right in the middle.
So you see 400 plus movies.
Yeah.
What ended up being your number one movie of 2019?
My number one film for 2019 was a documentary called For Sama, which I know you guys talked about when Brian was on.
Right.
Because he finally got to see it. And I was very happy when I saw that it would come up on his Letterboxd profile.
And I just watched it.
I also saw that on Letterboxd. I was very happy.
And that had to do a lot because we had Brian on and it comes up and you write things down, you see it, and wow, what a powerful movie.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to talk about best scenes of the year. That movie didn't make it, but that's not because there aren't great scenes in it. I felt like I can't include that with some of the other things I have on there. It's too much. It's real. It's actually happening, and I felt like that would be diminishing what was actually going on.
And pretty incredible. And for the jawheads that are wondering, it is streaming for free if you have Amazon Prime. So
I think it's on YouTube for free as well.
Oh, nice, because it's a PBS.
Yeah, it was a PBS distribution.
Is this the one that takes place in like a war-torn
Syria?
Syria? Yeah.
Yeah. Rough watch for sure. Like I say, in my Letterboxd, I even said I had to cover my eyes, and I don't almost ever do that in movies. I'm one of those, I hate when people do that. Like, I'm talking fiction here. You're watching a scary movie and somebody closes their eyes. Like, come on, that's the fun of it. But this is a movie I literally had to. It was just too hard to watch a couple of scenes. Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Good
so that
one,
was your
huh?
number
But it's
one.
totally worth, that was my number one. Yeah, totally worth watching if you haven't watched it yet. And it's nominated for Best Documentary Feature at the Oscars now. So and I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Got to check this one out.
Going to get some more attention, which is great. Switching gears here, you probably heard, we're celebrating Robert Downey Jr. month here, Mark.
Are we? That trivia felt like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, that was sort of a bad fact, I guess. But yeah, you
No, it's
can't
not a
blame
bad
it.
fact.
Yeah.
It's a fact. It's
It
a
is
neutral fact about his life.
It is.
But still, it was like when I came in, like, oh, Robert Downey Jr. month, and then that fact came up. And nothing against you. I'm pointing to the booth. Nothing. It's just, it was like, is this a troll? What's going on here?
It's the elephant in the room, though. We can't
It
do
is.
our
No, you
DJ
can't.
month and not mention it.
You can't.
So I pose this question to you, Mark.
Yes.
Your favorite Robert Downey Jr. performance?
I had to think about this, and it's unfortunately going to come. It coincides, I think, a little bit perfectly with the trivia that we heard. It's a movie called Two Girls and a Guy, directed by James Toback. Downey plays an actor.
Is he the dude playing the dude?
He's kind of a dude playing a dude, pretending to be another dude. Yeah, he seems a lot like himself in it. So the premise of it is that he is an actor. He comes home to his apartment to discover two women there outside, both of whom think that he is dating each of them exclusively. And so
Sounds like him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so he ends up going up to the apartment and they kind of have it out in multiple ways. He's fantastic in it. That's my favorite performance of his. I think he's great. It came out in 98, so it was like right in between the one we
Transition
talked
period,
about
yeah.
and then the one before it that kind of got him into hot water before that. And before, he got his career back on track, but he is tapping into some very personal shit on that in that film. And it's difficult to watch, but it's also just wholly engaging to watch that performance. It's a little film. It's like an hour and 20 minutes. It came out in 98. So if you haven't seen it, look for it. I don't know if you can find it anywhere. Why am I recommending something I don't know if anyone can find it?
Throw it into the fish tank.
Yeah.
See if it's streaming or where we can find it. It's called Two Girls and a Guy.
Two Girls and a Guy.
With Robert Downey Jr.
And no pizza place.
Yeah, and make sure if you Google that title, you have Safe Search turned on.
Please do.
Awesome.
Or just go right to the IMDb and type it in.
Yeah, that's the safe route.
Nice. Well, Mark is sitting in on this entire jaw. He has his top 5 favorite scenes of 2019 picked out as well. This is going to be a blast, Matt.
I'm looking forward to it, Ryan.
Let's get to it. Matt, prior to seeing the film Just Mercy, I had never heard the name Bryan Stevenson. Bryan is a lawyer and a social justice activist. He is also the founder of the Equal Justice Initiative. Just Mercy tells the story of perhaps his most well-known case, that of Walter McMillan, who was wrongly convicted of murder in 1986. Can this courtroom drama win over this jury? Matt Kay, Mark, and I put on our judge robes, picked up our gavels, and took a look at all the evidence.
The first time I visited death row, I wasn't expecting to meet somebody the same age as me. From a neighborhood just like ours. Could have been me, Mama.
But what you're doing is gonna make a lot of people upset.
You always taught me to fight for the people who need the help most. Your life is still meaningful, and I'm gonna do everything possible to keep them from taking it. You don't know what you're into down here in Alabama when you're guilty from the moment you're born.
God.
Mr. McMillan.
We done here.
Mr. McMillan, please.
Michael B. Jordan plays the young lawyer Bryan Stevenson. Fresh out of Harvard, he heads to Alabama to fight for people who cannot afford proper representation. He lands in Monroeville, which happens to be the home of Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird. With no office or staff, he gets to work. He meets Walter McMillan, played by Jamie Foxx, who is on death row. A quick look into his case, and Bryan sees some glaring mistakes. For starters, the state's case hinges all on one man's testimony. However, getting a retrial is going to be difficult. The people in power are in no way going to make this easy. Matt, we have seen these terrible stories of injustice before. Did Just Mercy do something different than those? And/or does it have to?
Yes, Ryan, it does have to. And yes, it does do something different. Phenomenal casting. Just Mercy does little, if anything, to break any molds. We get the same flavor as a Shawshank, Few Good Men, Mississippi Burning, but thanks to top-notch acting from Fox and Jordan, as well as the supporting cast, Tim Blake Nelson in particular, best known as Buster Scruggs, Just Mercy is a joy to watch. Director Destin Daniel Creighton plays it safe with the camera, the story, everything is fairly predictable. And even though this movie has a lot to do with civil rights, it feels safe. Perhaps he's not willing to take any risks before helming his big Marvel movie next year. However, the two leads in his film are so charismatic that they carry the movie. You ask me what this movie has going for it? In one word, Ryan, acting. So I throw it back over to you guys. With a lesser actor in either of the leads here, would Just Mercy be an also ran?
That's a good question. I actually like the film quite a bit, but I do wonder if part of that is the performances, because I think Michael B. Jordan is great in this. Jamie Foxx is great in it. Rob Morgan is fantastic in this. He plays a man on death row who has PTSD from serving in Vietnam. Yeah. And he confesses that he actually did plant a bomb under someone's porch that killed, I believe, a little girl, but he's remorseful about it. But he's great in this too. And
Ice Cube's son.
O'Shea Jackson Jr. He's good in it too.
He's great.
Brie Larson is
underused.
Underutilized, but she's also very good. I'm trying to think who else is. I think those are the big players in it. But yeah, it is a good question. If the performances were any less, would it have worked as effectively? And I don't know for sure, but I do know that I think Jordan carries it. I didn't know much about the man either, the real man either, but I was sitting there watching this movie. I'm like, I am so grateful there are people like this out in the world. There aren't many, but I'm glad there are.
Right.
And so to see his story being told, to see that there are people who are actually fighting for justice, and beyond that, not just justice to make sure that innocent people aren't executed, but that, maybe we should do away with the death penalty in this country. Because, Rye, you brought that up at the beginning. It's like, we've seen this story told before. And I think that's the most depressing thing about the film is that you start to realize, like, how many more of these films do we have to watch about people being wrongfully executed for crimes they didn't commit before we start to realize, like, why is this still happening? And I don't know if it would have worked as well without Jordan and without Fox. But I do know that the film that we have here is quite good, and it tells a story that needs to be told, and it shines a light on a person that I think a lot of people don't know about who needs to have his story told too.
That's fair. I agree with you.
Yeah, and I would say that's what probably separates it from some of those stories, be it Mississippi Burning or the like, is that it doesn't just necessarily focus on the case, but it does on this particular lawyer who started this whole entire initiative called the Equal Justice Initiative, which I think is something that needs to be celebrated and should be seen on the big screen to give awareness to just what an accomplishment it is.
Yeah, social justice.
Yeah,
for sure.
And yeah, you guys nailed it with Michael B. Jordan's performance. He's been good in other things, but I think he was just so confident in this particular role that we just haven't seen that out of him yet. This was like a whole step of like maturity with him, where it was like, wow, I can really buy him as, this particular role. He was great in Creed and other ones, but this
Black Panther.
This shows him, in Black Panther.
For
this
Vale
shows
Station.
him even a whole nother level of how talented this guy is.
What I love about his performance is that, he's wholly confident, he is wholly determined, but there's also like the simmering rage that comes up every so often, like when he strip search at the jail before going in. And you can sense it kind of in some of the courtroom scenes when things don't go the right way. You can sense him just like building up and wanting to say something beyond what he should be saying under the circumstances and won't.
But he maintains that decorum.
Yeah. It's a great performance.
It is.
I also enjoyed in a macabre sort of way, but the irony that in this town is it's famous for To Kill a Mockingbird. And all these people are like, oh, you got to see the Mockingbird Museum. You got to go. And they all act as if all this stuff happening, all of these people, all these poor people, all these black people being executed, being put in jail, being tormented and tortured. And they're like, it's as if the fact that Harper Lee wrote a book about racism in the South that's set in this town means that they're free to do whatever the hell they want. And it's like, you people don't see the irony that you're still doing the same stuff that Harper Lee was talking about in the novel. They can't see it. I kind of wish I had dug a little bit more into that. It's there. There are scenes of like the cops harassing him and all that, but I kind of wish I had dug a little bit more into some of that. But again, for the story it's telling, it's really well done.
Yeah, and that was my point. I think that the movie plays it safe in a lot of ways. The script is fairly formulaic, and I definitely think that the entire success of this movie, though I agree with you, Mark, the story did need to be told about Bryan Stevenson, who I was not that familiar with or familiar with at all ahead of time. If you don't have that cast, you don't have those performances, this is a formulaic courtroom procedural that could have been a TV movie, and it doesn't have enough of those hard-hitting, deep-digging beats to make it a really phenomenal script, but it's just acted so well that it makes up for it big time.
Yeah, you mentioned The Green Mile, and I think there's
I didn't mention The Green Mile.
Oh, you didn't?
No, I said Shawshank.
Oh, Shawshank.
But I agree.
Green Mile because there is death row, and there's an electric chair scene in where they're going to electrocute someone, and I thought this is the most horrific and moving scene since The Green Mile when it comes to someone actually, getting executed by.
Yeah, that moment where he says he's going to have his flag brought to Brian, that got to me.
Yeah, did me as well. Emotionally, it moved me at the end. Everything. So it won, even though it is formulaic and probably doesn't go as deep as we wanted it to.
Yeah.
It still won me over, even
I agree.
emotionally. It moved me, and it got me interested in looking things up about the characters and the case. So that's the sign of a good movie.
Right. And I like that at the end, we do get to see some pictures of the real people that were involved in the story. And by all, appearances, it looks like they did justice, at least to their likeness.
No pun intended.
Yeah, no pun intended. It's
Yeah.
good. This is a good movie. I really enjoyed it.
I did too. We do let's do a movie poster quote first. Do you have one?
I got one. Jamie Foxx and Michael B. Jordan save this movie from the prison of unoriginality.
Decent. That's all I'll give you. I went with hear he, just mercy is a winner.
Bailiff, come get Rye the movie guy.
You got one off the top of your head
Off the
here,
top
Mark?
of my head, I don't know. Just abolish the death penalty already if you want these movies to stop being made. I don't know.
That works. That works.
It's still good though.
All right. We're on a 4-jaw scale. How many jaws, Matt K?
I'd give this one a solid 3.
I would give it also a 3.
I'm also at a 3 jaws.
Look at that.
Wow.
That's where it is, right?
It really is.
It doesn't get that 4th star, but it earned all 3 of the ones it has firmly.
I'm a little shocked that nobody, Michael B. Jordan would have been a tough one to get nominated. Out of this, maybe Jamie Foxx could have squeezed in.
Maybe.
He was in some of the award talk here. I think he got nominated for Screen Actors Guild, but didn't make the cut for the Oscars. But I would have liked to seen it, I think, represented a little bit more in the award season, just because that draws eyeballs to it.
Yeah, it does. I think it's doing okay at the box office though, because it had a limited release at Christmas and it came out earlier this month. Wide release, and I think it's doing okay.
That's good.
For what it's about.
Yeah.
Tim Blake Nelson, guys. Can we really quickly talk about how amazing he is in this? Yeah. This is Buster Scruggs, right? You know who I'm talking about?
Yes.
He pops up in a lot of stuff. He's a tremendous character actor, usually comedic, and he's got this affectation, I don't know, like he's had a stroke or something, where he's only using one side of his face, and you realize that that's acting, and man, he is good. I'm starting to like him more and more.
Oh yeah, I think he's great. Period. I've known him for a while, but yeah, he's even though we all know his name, he is kind of a character actor. Oh brother, where art thou? Right.
Right.
And
That's
of course, I have
probably
to
his
actually
most
question
well-known
myself.
role.
Do I know? Am I sure about that?
Yeah.
He directed. Oh, what did he direct? He directed I believe he directed a film called O, which is a modern day Shakespeare adaptation.
He did that one? Yeah.
Yes.
With Julia Stiles?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, right. It's an adaptation of like Ophelia, right?
Yeah. No, Othello.
Othello.
Ophelia's Hamlet.
Right.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. I also want to
up
say
on my Shakespeare here, Mark.
I know. I also want to say he directed a film called The Gray Zone, which I'm gonna have.
That's a multi-talented dude.
He is. That's a great film that people haven't seen.
Can we throw it in the fish tank just to
Make
double
sure.
check? Who directed The Gray Zone?
As long as I'm right. As long as I'm right. And I probably could have looked this up. I got my phone right next to me. But if I'm right, it's a great film. Did you guys see Son of Saul? It came out a couple years ago.
I saw Better Call Saul.
Okay, no? Okay, that was going back to 1917. That's a one-take film set in a concentration camp. And turns into it. Did you watch?
Yes, I did see it.
Oh, you did see it.
Okay. Yeah.
Gray Zone kind of covers a similar story. It all builds up to a rebellion, but it's more about the philosophical side of life in the concentration camp and what you should do and what you shouldn't do to get away from it. It's a great film.
Wow. Yeah.
And I do think Tim Blake Nelson directed it.
I'm glad I brought him up.
Good stuff. Hey, Just Mercy is still out in theaters. You heard it here. Matt K., Mark Dujsik, and Rye the Movie Guy all gave it 3 jaws. Well worth the trip to the theater, so do check it out. It was a 2019 release, so it qualifies for our top 5 this week as we finish up our recap of the year with our top 5 favorite movie scenes of the year. Mark, you're our guest. We like to let the guest get started, and we always ask him, was it a difficult list to come up with? Easy, fun? How'd you tackle it?
It was a little difficult because I had to eliminate a couple of things that I really thought were going to end up on there, and but I'm happy with the ones that are there. I ended up, I don't know if we're going to start off with, but like my honorable mentions, I'm like, oh, this would have been a great top 5 scene list anyway, which I think only shows the strength of the top 5 that I did pick. But yeah, it was a little rough, and I was saying before the show that I kind of looked at my, best films of the year for the best scenes of the year and made sense. And I feel like I might have missed a couple of things. So when I'm interested to hear your list.
Yeah.
What do you got sitting at number 5, Mark?
Do we get to talk about honorable mentions
Yes.
first?
We save it for the end.
After we're done.
All right. So my number 5 is The Auction from Uncut Gems. Did you guys see Uncut Gems? Oh, good.
Yes.
This is fantastic scene.
I was curled up in a ball, screaming at the TV, stop, don't do this anymore during that scene. So Adam Sandler plays a man who's a compulsive gambler, and he's kind of just messing up his own life. He's getting some other people involved, but it's nothing too bad. But he's really just screwing things up for himself in so many ways. And then the auction scene comes along where he's trying to auction off, he's trying to get this gem that he got from a blood diamond mine in Africa. He's trying to get it to this auction house to sell. He thinks it's going to be for like millions upon millions of dollars. And instead they're selling it for like
a couple $100,000.
Yeah, a couple $100,000 tops. Mm-hmm. And it's even less than that. So he pulls in a family member to try to raise up the bid against Kevin Garnett.
Oh, who was that guy? He's a good actor too.
Judd Hirsch. Judd Hirsch plays the family member. No problem. Judd Hirsch plays the family member, and he is just kind of like nodding to him like, yeah, keep raising up that bet, and you know that this is much, much more money than this man can possibly afford. And it's the first time that Sandler's character, Howie, is going to seriously hurt somebody at some point down the line if he hasn't already. And this is the scene where it's like, you are taking this way too far now. And it was just horrifying, anxiety-inducing to watch. I seriously was just yelling at the screen, stop.
Loved it. Loved it.
Great scene. All right, that swings it over to me at number 5. This is where I have a scene that was, first of all, beautifully filmed. Second of all, completely horrifying, and also had one of the best emotional arcs, I think, at the end of any movie, perhaps this year, just in one scene, I mean. And it is the Immolation scene at the end of Midsommar. When Christian...
Wow, a number 5.
Yeah. Christian is in the bear suit. We have...
That's already great.
We have the volunteers from the village... who are in this hut willingly that is about to be set ablaze. And then the victims that we have seen fall off one by one throughout the film are also strewn about this room in ceremonial way. And then it lights, and it keeps flashing back and forth between the fire slowly enveloping these people, and one of them starts to scream, and it's very disturbing. All the villagers scream and share the pain along with the victims. And Florence Pugh's face, as she's got this like horrible, like just grimace of regret and everything she's gone through, that slowly fades into catharsis, into a smile. And it was just unexpected, beautifully shot, horrible.
And unsettling, just unsettling.
Very unsettling. And the implications of that smile is more than anything else in that entire movie left me thinking like, what the hell? What the hell did I just see? It was a weird movie, great ending, probably the best horror ending in a long time, maybe 5 years. I don't know. I loved it. Loved it.
Maybe since Ari Aster's Hereditary.
I don't like the ending
of Hereditary.
You don't like the ending of that?
No.
Oh. I think the movie's fantastic, and then the ending happens.
I like it.
Oh, man. So many decapitations in that at the end. It's just,
There was a lot of decapitations.
There's a lot of decapitations. And then that last scene with all the naked people kneeling before him.
But Hail Satan. They could have held the Hail Satan.
Yeah, maybe, but still, that moment was as terrifying to me as it sounds like Midsommar's ending was for you. But I get, that was.
It was a good, I like Midsommar way better than Hereditary.
Okay, I like Hereditary quite a bit more, but I get.
Fair. We can agree that Ari Aster's great.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
There we go.
Very promising talent, and that scene is very unnerving at the end of it. Midsommar.
It is. I remember saying how good the sound was because the sound mixing of the crying and the chanting
and the
everything
score.
Going on, and the score is haunting.
It's beautiful. It's this like very lovely orchestral score, and then it slowly turns dark and comes off the rails.
You take a shower after that movie.
Yeah.
It is streaming on Amazon Prime. If you haven't seen it, Jawheads.
In glorious 4K if you have it.
Do it up. It's well worth it. My number 5 comes from a movie that we haven't had a chance to review yet on the show. And it doesn't get a wide release, I don't think, actually until February. It's one of these that came out in 2019. The film is called A Portrait of a Lady on Fire. And there's actually a few scenes in this movie that are worthy when you're doing a list like this of saying this could be in my top 5 of the year. One is actually the very first time we're trying to get a look at Eloise, who is the girl that is supposed to get this portrait of her painted. And as she's like walking towards these cliffs, the camera is sort of behind her and trying to catch a glimpse of her face. I love the way that is all presented. And then also the ending shot of this movie, which lingers for a long time, and I don't want to spoil anything here, but it swells with emotion. And the longer it goes, the more emotional it is. And it left me thinking at the end of that this might be one of the best movies of the year. However, the scene that I'm going to highlight is the most cinematic moment in the film, and it explains the title at the same time. And that's when this group of women have gathered outside around a fire, and the two ladies here, the artist and the subject, lock eyes. And all the women are singing in unison, which turns into this beautiful moment of musically being played. And these two women get so lost in the moment that Eloise actually walks so close to the fire that it lights her dress on fire. And we've seen this image earlier in the film at the very beginning. And so we know it must pop up somewhere in the film. And when this moment finally happens, it's so rewarding. It's not one of those where it's teased earlier, and then when you finally see it, it's somewhat of a letdown. This was extremely beautiful. Love that entire scene. You've seen this one, Mark?
Oh, yeah, I love it. It was on my top 10 list. Matt, have you seen it yet?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, so cool. Funnily enough, my number 4 scene of the year is the final shot of Portrait of a Lady on Fire. I thought that's where you're going with it. And yeah, I don't want to spoil anything because it came out like in New York, I think, for like a week at the end of the year last year. It's going to be, I think, a Valentine's Day wider release, but I don't know how wide. But yeah, I don't want to ruin it. But that final, it's a one take shot, 2 minutes, 20 seconds, 2.5 minutes, somewhere around there of just one of the actors sitting in a place, listening to a thing. I don't want to spoil it, and it might not sound like it would be a spoiler, but it is. And the performance in that moment is transcendent. The way that she goes through almost the entire range of reliving everything that we've seen her go through, coming to terms with it, readjusting where she's at now. You see all of this on her face just from the context of the scene and the performance. It's Adele Haenel, I believe is the actress's name. She's one of the best performances of the year. I don't know how the film was completely ignored by the Academy, but it was. Part of it was because France didn't submit it for their official nominee for Best Foreign Language Film. But that moment is just one of the most beautiful pieces of acting I've seen in a long time.
I was weeping in emotion. It was one of those, it just got me, and I just started weeping is the best way to say it. It just broke me down.
Yeah, that whole film very slowly just started to break my heart.
And it even has a 1-2 punch, because right before that scene, there's actually a moment right before that that's emotional that I thought, oh, geez, that's good. But I thought that was good enough to end it on that
I did
note.
too.
And then you get this. I'm like, oh my God, this movie is really moved me.
Tearjerker.
It really is.
It is.
Okay.
It is.
Really is.
It's not like sappy tearjerker. It really goes in deep to these characters and their relationship and how it builds up.
It
over
earns
time.
it.
It definitely earns it. Yeah, completely, 100% earns it.
Nice.
Yeah.
My number 5, Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Number 4, Mark Dujsik. 2 scenes back to back.
Yeah,
I think that's
from the same film. That shows how powerful
huge.
it is.
All right, that swings it over to my number 4, and this is where I put in a scene from The Last Black Man in San Francisco.
You love this movie.
I do. I'm championing this film because I think, again, with this amazing slate of movies we got in 2019, it sort of slipped through the cracks because it came out very early in the year, and I think it was just an amazing directorial debut. Jimmy is skateboarding down the hills of San Francisco, and this is a theme the movie returns to a few times, but he's already moved into his house, his childhood home. He's sort of squatting there. And it's before we get the death of his friend, which is sort of what kicks the third act into, motion. He's skateboarding down the hills of San Francisco, and just out of nowhere, he falls off his skateboard and wipes out. And then it's like, cut. That's the end of the scene. You don't expect it. It's just such a weird beat because all throughout the movie, we've seen him skating, and he's pretty good. And he goes down the hills of San Francisco with no trouble at all. But I think that fall sort of signifies we're about to get into something here. And I just really picked up on that today as I was making this list. I'm like, oh, that was symbolism. It wasn't just like a funny little beat. which it is also a funny little beat. But I think this movie is a lot deeper than people are giving it credit for.
And I just love the shots, the cinematography, actually, of
it's
watching him
gorgeous.
skateboarding down these beautiful roads of San Francisco.
Some of the shots look
there
like...
are some great ones.
Yes, gorgeous. It's way prettier a movie than it deserves to be, honestly. But there's some scenes that it almost make San Francisco look like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, like that miniature. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's wonderfully shot.
My favorite is, I believe he's skateboarding, but he's going from kind of like where his childhood home is, back to where he's living now.
Yeah.
He's skateboarding during that, right? It's just like a tracking shot of him going down. And you see in the background how the socioeconomic and just the cultural things change in the background as he's moving from one place to another in the same city. Mm-hmm. I love that shot.
That is a good one, too.
Yeah.
It's another good movie here. Mentioning a lot of great films. I like it. My number 4 comes from a film that made my top 10 and Matt's top 10. The film is entitled Jojo Rabbit.
Ooh, interesting, Ryan.
And I had mentioned how much I loved the scene in this film, and it's near the end of the movie because it's a dance sequence near the end of the film between Jojo and Elsa, played by Thomasin McKenzie. And the film, which is a dark satire, comes at us strong emotionally. And near the end, it needed to find a way to balance itself back out. And I think Taika Waititi did just that with this short scene in which the two characters have this dance. And it made us feel good coming out of the theater. If you were a fan of this movie, and I know it has people who aren't as big on it as me and Matt were, Brian Tallarico being one of them. But for the ones that were fans, I think it hit the tone perfectly. And in fact, when we had the chance to interview Thomasin McKenzie, we asked her, how did this dance sequence come out? Were those all your own dance moves?
Sure. So could you tell us about the dance sequence? Are those all your dance moves, or was there some heavy direction there?
Some of them are mine. A lot of the time, Roman and I were kind of mirroring each other because I think we both felt a little bit embarrassed at dancing in front of a massive crew. I also remember though that scene was actually one we filmed. We filmed it during principal shooting, but we also refilmed it during pickups, during reshoots. And I remember Taika dancing along with us behind the camera.
Just to get you into the mood?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes, I think some of those dance moves would have been his as well.
Great to have Thomasin on the show.
Yeah, that was a real treat.
It was. And I love this sequence. Were you a fan of this movie,
I was
Mark?
not a fan of this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
You and Tallarico are like the only two people I know. Well, maybe that's not
no,
true.
that's not that. We're not the only ones. But no, I was not a fan of it. I could not stand the tone of it. I couldn't stand the kind of weird implication of the only war crime being committed during a World War II film in Nazi Germany was committed by Allied soldiers. That was a little off-putting. When at the very end they start executing some people for no reason. And it's,
it wasn't no reason. They were Nazis.
But they gave up. They surrendered.
Well,
you don't execute, even if they're Nazis, you don't execute them without a trial. That's what Nuremberg was about.
Right.
Yeah.
I think, didn't they start fighting or something?
There was some stuff going on. I know, but it was still, there were definitely some scenes where like some soldiers were shooting some Nazis, like unarmed Nazis, and it was like, what? And then, anyway, I was not a fan of it.
It's okay to punch Nazis, Mark.
Hey, I didn't say that.
All right,
I said
I know.
Kill. I specifically said kill.
You did. Fair.
You didn't ask if Taika Waititi was dressed as Hitler doing the dancing behind the camera, though.
She earlier in the interview, she had mentioned that he had the Hitler costume on through most of the filming. So he would be standing behind the camera with the toothbrush mustache on, and
oh my God.
Yeah, and we asked her, was that weird? And she's like, yeah, it was pretty weird.
It would be. It was weird in the movie.
You got to wonder what was going through his mind. I imagine at some point he probably just forgot because you don't know what you look like, You're sort of looking out from within. Strange.
All right, that was my number 4, Jojo Rabbit. Into our 3 as we go.
Number 3 for me is a scene I'm calling First Blood from The Nightingale. I don't want to get into much detail because I've talked about this film quite a bit. But I loved it. It's a tale of revenge set in not present day. It's set in the past, but in what would become Tasmania. And a woman is horribly assaulted and her family is murdered, and she sets out on revenge. And at a certain point, she finds one of the 3 soldiers who killed her family and assaulted her, including her baby. And she finds one of these men, and she finally decides to hunt him down very methodically and proceed to murder him in very, very graphic detail. Now, the reason that I included in this list is not because of the violence, and it's not because of the satisfaction of having that moment come, but it's actually the complete opposite. It's because that's the moment where you start to realize that this film is not just about revenge, it's also about the consequences of revenge and violence in general, and the way that it's secular and that it just keeps going. But the main reason I think that I included it is because the film features, for me, the best performance of the year from an actress called Aisling Franciosi. Mm-hmm. And in this scene, I talked about the performance in Portrait of a Lady on Fire and how transcendent that moment was. There's something very similar happening here, because Franciosi is going through all of these things as she's killing this man and after the fact when she sees what she has done, and is this sense of satisfaction and anger and also regret and remorse and grief, and everything is right there on her face. And I don't know how she managed to pull that off just in a single shot, but you sense exactly where she's going and how she's feeling. And it's the moment that The Nightingale, for me, flipped from just a story of revenge to something much, much deeper. And it goes even deeper than that. And it's not just about personal revenge, but it's about revenge for an entire people later on, because her guide through the forest is an Aboriginal man. And so it goes deeper than that still. But that is the moment for me that Nightingale turned into something much greater than it seemed like.
I'm going to say Mark's right on all that. I agree with you. One other small detail that should be mentioned about that particular scene is that we so often see in movies when somebody of her character is going out for revenge, the kill actually goes way too easy on the screen. And I thought they did a wonderful job of actually showing it in a realistic manner of if you were actually going to kill somebody like this, how difficult that can be. Because it's shown usually so easy, like, oh, they just do this and bam, you shoot the guy. But no, this was a struggle.
Because if I remember correctly, he's wounded too beforehand. So he's wounded and he's limping around, but it's still like a knockdown, drag-out fight between the two of them before she gets to it. And it's just,
it's a great one.
Yeah.
The
great
Nightingale.
film, great scene.
Me and David Fowley were talking about it last week. It's back on this week's show.
It's on Hulu.
Yep. There you go.
All right, guys.
Matt Kay.
If I asked you what the strongest thing in the world was,
oh no,
you might say that it was metal, followed by TNT, and then at a close third, muscles. But you would be wrong. As Scarlett Johansson tells Jojo in Jojo Rabbit, it is love, gentlemen. And this is what I think one of the sweetest scenes of the year, between a mother and a son, and clearly she's losing him. I think at this point, slight spoiler alert, fellas, I think at this point she knows that she's in real danger because of her political beliefs. This is taking place obviously in Nazi Germany, where it was, let's just say, unpopular to be in any sort of dissent from the Nazi party. So she knows that things are not going well for her personally. Her relationship with her son is somewhat strained because he is a fanatic who's sort of really likes to dress up in the Nazi regalia and whatnot. But she has this discussion about love, and then they have this wonderful little comedic exchange where she ties his shoelaces together, the shoes being a big theme and the laces in particular throughout the movie. And it's just great. I loved it. It's also beautifully shot. Well written, great acting.
Jojo.
Yeah.
We love it.
I don't know what you didn't like about it. I mean, I understand you just mentioned all the reasons you don't like it, like the tone was off or something. I don't know. I say maybe watch it again.
And then afterwards, watch it again.
Yeah,
And then watch it again?
Third
Okay.
time, and it's really going to get you on the third one.
I did think Scarlett Johansson was very good in it, though.
She's not getting enough recognition.
Hey, let's leave it on a compliment, Matt. We got a compliment out of him on the movie.
Wait. Didn't she get nominated for?
She did.
For
double
JoJo?
nominated.
Yeah, she's double nominee.
Oh, okay, all right. I take
Yeah,
back what
I think
just
that's
said.
about as high recognition as you can get.
Yeah,
so.
it's pretty high.
It is. My number 3 pick comes from a film that we haven't talked about much at year end. It should be mentioned. The film is A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And the scene, I think it has one special scene in the movie, which is a diner scene / moment of silence, I call it. And I had the chance to see this in Toronto this year. And I mention this because I got to see it in one of those large theaters where it's a few thousand people watching the premiere of the film. And what the filmmakers were going for here was just heightened because that many people in the theater went along for the ride. And I was researching this scene and I came across an article by Entertainment Weekly that actually wrote in a little article just on this scene. And EW had this to say. Then it happens. I think it's perfectly summed up here. It says, then it happens. As the bustle of clanking plates and lunchtime chatter lessens around them, Rogers asks Vogel to take a minute of silence to consider the people who loved him into being. For the next 60 seconds of the movie, Vogel and Rogers sit quiet while the camera pans around the restaurants. Diner patrons, including Fred Rogers' real-life spouse, Joanne, become silent as well before the camera focuses on Hank's face as he shifts his gaze from Vogel to the audience in the theater, asking us to consider the most important people in our lives as well. And it completely worked, seeing it with thousands of people, that slight gaze where he basically breaks the fourth wall and looks at the camera for us to take that moment of silence with him. Sitting there in a room of maybe 3,000 people and everybody on board with that moment of silence was completely moving. And even watching it a second time on a screener at home, it moved me as well. I think it was the most emotional moment of that movie.
I agree. That was a great moment from a very good movie, but I think that was also in the documentary. That moment of silence. And
I mean, that might have been something that he did. And he might have talked about in the documentary, but this was
they did the exact same thing in the documentary. Yeah, they did.
They did?
No.
Yeah.
I think he's blending the two movies together.
When they're talking about remembering all the people that have gone before, and everyone's silent, and you just see their face, and they're like looking up and remembering.
But that's like with the talking heads, right?
Yes.
It intercuts between that. This is
it's a dramatic turn.
I agree with you that's a similar approach, but the impact, I think, in here, because
it was good.
You had to remind me that it happened in the documentary, but here it literally breaks the entire narrative for like a whole minute. You're no longer being told the story of this journalist and Fred Rogers. You are being told, think about somebody that's important to you. Think of all the people who have affected you in your life right now in the theater. And it is Tom Hanks as Fred Rogers, as Tom Hanks, looking right out at us and telling us, no, this is really, I really mean it. This is for you right now. And it's like, I looked at the film as like a special episode of the Fred Rogers show, the Mr. Rogers show, and that would have been something that would have been in there. I also think It's a beautiful moment, but yeah, it didn't make my list because again, it wasn't that high up on my list for the year. But man, if I had thought about it, that might have made at least an honorable mention. There we go. It's a great scene.
None of the faces in the diner are accidental. They're all people from the documentary.
Yeah.
If you watch, they were all like production people.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonderful scene.
It was.
A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. Into our twos we go, Mark.
My number 2, I am calling The Floor Drops Out from Parasite. And the only reason I say this because when my wife and I were watching it, this was the moment she's like, I can't take this right now because I know something's going to happen. I think the floor is going to drop out. And I said, oh, you have no idea. So this is the moment when the Kim family, they're impoverished and they've all worked their way into working for this rich, wealthy family in their fancy dancy house. And the original housekeeper returns for something. And we have no clue what it is. And they all have to hide except for the mother, who is now the housekeeper because she took over after an incident involving some peach fuzz. And I don't want to give it away because It is such a fantastic
Yeah,
moment.
got to dance around.
I have to
spoilers
dance
here.
around the whole thing. But there is a moment when it seems like this, really smart social satire and this kind of, fantastic comedy of, just people doing their best to work their way into the situation. And in this moment, when you realize there's something going on in the basement, and then you realize that that's not the basement, and that's when the floor drops out and the entire film shifts gears and everything just goes insane in ways that you had not anticipated. And then, watching it again, I was like, it's all there. Bong Joon-ho sets it up so perfectly throughout the entire film. He has all of the clues laying out there, but you have no clue how to piece them together. But yeah, that moment of just going from one level and you think, okay, we're going to find out what's going on. And then you have to go down an entirely other level to figure out what's really going on. That is one of the great surprises in the film year for me.
I've only seen it one time. I can't wait to watch it a second one. And it is out on digital now. I believe you can rent it on all platforms. So no reason not to see Parasite before Oscar night and cheer it along.
It better win. It better win.
It might.
I think it might. I'm not willing to predict it officially yet, but I think it might.
For the record, no foreign language film has ever won the big prize. If it happens, I'm going to be screaming in my living room.
I think this is the one that could do it, though, because everybody loves it.
You're number 2, Matt.
All right. And my number 2, I have a movie that was another one that featured one of the best acting performances of the year. And I'll just cut right to the chase. This is the talk show scene from The Joker. And I remember telling Ryan during our review that people bandy about the term sitting on the edge of your seat, but I was literally gripping the edge of my seat, sitting like on my toes. Like, I have never been so tense in the movie theater. I felt myself not breathing a few times because the movie does such a fantastic job. And this is one of the things that people detract for the movie for, but it does such a fantastic job of making us sympathetic toward Arthur Fleck and falling in love with him despite all of his flaws and mental illnesses, that when he gets to this point where we see he's about to cross the line and get to the point of no return, or I mean, he probably already has, but just go full bananas Joker, we're really sad. And we almost don't want to see it happen. But at the same time, this is his power play, and we kind of do want to see it happen. So it was such a manipulative thing that Todd Phillips wrought in that scene. Plus, it's Robert De Niro, who, even though the fantasies that Arthur were having kind of had him as a mean person, he was just a talk show host, probably a really nice guy, and you didn't want to see something bad happen to him, Bobby. But it was inevitable, and it was just a great moment. It was gripping.
I loved it as well. I'm not as big on the movie as Matt Kay was, but I got to give props to that scene. Yeah. The way it built up, exactly what you're saying, the tension that it gets. And I have seen that one a second time, and it had the same effect on me the second time watching it as well. I felt nervous. My hands were sweating a little bit, and I was like, how is this going to play out? Even though you sort of know how it's going to play out, but you're still questioning it.
I was under the suspicion that it might go the Dark Knight Returns route. If I remember correctly, I believe in the comic book there's a scene where Joker is on a late night talk show. I believe it's the Dark Knight Returns.
It's been a while since I've read it. It sits on my bookshelf with pride, but I haven't read it in years.
Oh, it's great. But there is if I remember correctly, it's like a David Letterman stand-in, and he goes on a talk show after being taken out of the asylum, and something happens there too. And I was wondering if they were going to go that route with this Joker. So having it low-key, I do like Joker. What I like about it is how much it takes away from the lore of Batman specifically, and Batman in general and the Joker specifically, where it's not this guy who's the clown prince of crime yet. He's just that guy on the subway who looks, and the bus, who looks kind of weird, and you don't know what's going on. And I like that.
You mean Ryan the movie guy? Yeah,
kind of like that.
I've seen him on the CTA.
Sitting next to me on the screen. But no, so I did like it, and that scene is very unnerving, and I didn't know where it was going to go. I guess that's a sign of a good scene.
Knew that one had to come up on our top 5. Glad it did. My number 2, I hemmed and hawed about putting this one on the list because it came from a documentary. And I thought, wow, should I put this on the list?
course
I
you
don't
should.
know.
Yes,
but
yes.
then I thought, I remember this really moving me a lot when I was sitting in the theater watching this movie. And I am speaking of the wonderful documentary Apollo 11, and specifically the launch sequence in Apollo 11. And this was a documentary came out early in the year, made up of actual footage, cleaned up, made for this IMAX presentation, which was just absolutely gorgeous. And never before has the mission to the moon been shown in such an exciting and awe-inspiring way when it comes to the cinema itself. It's always sort of overly, produced and dramatic, and you get your NASA movies, which are good, but I think the raw footage and the music, the score in this movie, how it wasn't nominated for an Oscar is beyond me. It was my favorite of the year. The sound, the glorious footage. I was again felt myself overcome with emotion watching this wonderful achievement of the rocket going off into space. It was literally incredible. You were a fan of this one.
Oh
as well.
God, yeah. It made my top 10 list. It was number 10 on my list. Yeah, that launch scene and the way that it's cut with all the people in like hotels around the city watching it too. I really want to go do that if they do a launch again. I don't care who's president and set it up. I want to go down and watch a spaceship launch. Oh man, there are so many great moments in that film. There's the first one with the giant tank conveyor bringing the rocket to the launch pad.
Saturn.
Yeah,
rocket.
I was overwhelmed by that. The scope of it.
It's pretty overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. It is. I love. It's almost like a running gag how Buzz Aldrin's heart rate is lower than everybody else's to the point that they can't even read it at one point. They're like, wait, and Buzz, who knows? He's Buzz Aldrin.
He's a machine.
Yeah, he is.
You also have that shot of after the LEM took off from the moon, and they're filming it back from the space capsule, and it just holds that view, and it literally looks like something out of Stanley Kubrick's 2001. But this was actual
That's because
footage.
it was.
No.
It's literally incredible.
Yeah.
It really was.
It is great. And there's a lot.
I'll tell you my favorite shot of the movie. Somehow they found this footage of a truck, and I think for me, seeing the crowd watching the rocket being launched was my favorite part. Mm-hmm. You see this footage of a truck, which is obviously a camera truck, going down the street from the audience's perspective, and then suddenly the perspective flips 180, and you're in the truck. Which they had to have found both of those films and to stitch them together and to make this seamless shot. That was very good. I didn't like the movie quite as much as you guys because I don't think, as glorious as it was, and yes, the sound and everything was great, don't think it really said anything new that we didn't already know about the moon landing. Well,
that's true, but it presents it in such a condensed fashion from the beginning of the mission to the end, and you can see exactly what's going on.
It was pretty.
It. Yeah. No, it's and the new footage is revelatory. I didn't know that you could make footage that old look that good on a giant screen.
Really beautiful.
That's true.
All right, here it is, the big moment, guys.
Boy.
Our number one scenes of 2019. Mark, you have the honors of going first.
I have the honors of going first. God, every time I talk about this film, I'm like, why isn't this like my best film of the year? But I think it has the best scene of the year, and I'm cheating a little bit because it's not really, it's a montage, but I count that as a scene, especially within the context of this film. And that is from Little Women, and I am dubbing it The End, but which one? Because I love Little Women. I didn't realize how much I loved that story until I watched Greta Gerwig's version of it. And I adored how Gerwig puts the ending of the film to keep it true to the ending of the book, but also to keep it true to the ending that Joe Marsh deserves, and also to keep it true to Louisa May Alcott's true life. And she does all three of those things at once. And so that every single ending that you would want out of the story of Little Women is right there on the screen. All of them are happening at the same time. And at the same time, none of them are kind of happening because you don't know which one it is that you're supposed to take away from it because they're all there. I love this film so much. It was like number 5 on my list, and every time I talk about it, I'm like, why the hell is it at number 5?
I'm high up on this one too.
I'm high up on it as well.
But that ending just floored me, how she pulls that off. To be able to, just through editing and through setting up those characters and the performances, to give you in the insight that she doesn't want to give a final answer on which ending matters.
Right.
And gives equal weight to all of them, and it's overwhelming.
Right. Because she even has an answer for the publisher, who's played by Tracy Letts.
Yeah.
But it definitely calls into question, like, oh, that's just for him and for the people that need that type of ending. But that isn't the ending that maybe another viewer wants out of this.
Yeah.
And it is. It's
because
brilliant.
and also is Joe talking to the publisher? Is that actually Joe, or is that now have we moved over to the actual author of Little Women, who in the film is also Joe? I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else to say about it. That's my scene of the year.
That's interesting. I never considered that layer of reality.
She's dressed She's dressed completely differently. If you watch that scene again, she is dressed.
I did notice
way
that.
off, even from when she's in New York the first time. And
Interesting.
it's there's something to that.
I figured at that point she was just successful, had money, and bought a new outfit.
Yeah, well, it's possible, but it's such a different change that I'm almost like, this almost feels like a new character.
Well, even if it's not, it certainly brings that symbolism to it.
Yeah, it's leading you down that path that you're watching all of those endings and all of those characters and real life people, I feel, in that same moment.
Wow, you just brought a new layer of enjoyment to that movie for me.
Well,
even
I love
more
it then.
Little Women.
Yay.
Yeah.
What happens to the Little Women?
How little are they, really? Are we talking like a few inches or? All right. Guys, this is going to come as no surprise to a lot of people here when I reveal my number one pick. Ryan is already wagging his head in disappointment, but we witnessed the end of one of the greatest projects in cinema.
All right, so that moves on to my number one.
No, do it.
We witnessed the end of one of the greatest projects in cinema. It's really unprecedented. And of course, I'm going to get a lot of hate mail for this, and I'm going to get a lot of mail saying, right on, Matt. And I'm talking about Avengers Endgame.
Oh, I thought it was going to be Rise of Skywalker for a second.
No, geez, no. Man. I'm not that bad.
Okay.
I mean, I love me some Star Wars, but that didn't do it for me. I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, I'm talking about Endgame. It was the end of the MCU, ostensibly, at least Act 1 or whatever of the MCU. But the scene in particular that I think was very poignant, speaking of Robert Downey Jr., who we are celebrating, can't go without talking about Iron Man. And it is the snap, the I am Iron Man snap. Thanos says, I am inevitable, and Robert Downey Jr. says, I am Iron Man. And it was just so satisfying a moment. And what follows, we lose this hero who we've had for the past decade. And RDJ made him a household name. Before 2008, you ask the average kid on the street who's Iron Man, and they would have been like, I don't know, blank stare. But now he is, a household name to the point where, your mom, your grandma, she knows who Iron Man is. It's just like part of the American culture now. And that just happened. And this scene was the culmination of all that, and I think he does it justice. I really do. And it was emotional. It was very emotional when everybody comes to Tony Stark's side and he's incapacitated. I was emotional. I liked it.
I was
Best
sitting
scene
next
of the
to you
year.
in the screening. Emotional is an understatement.
I was near tears.
It's okay. It's okay.
Near tears. You were crying like a baby.
There's nothing wrong with it.
I didn't think he was
going
going
to
to. I did not think
sad.
Matt was going to be able to walk out of the theater. He's like, let everybody else go. Let everybody else go.
I tell you what, the older I get, I always thought it was like a sign of pride that like, only like a couple movies make me cry. That happens all the time now.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
That's
but
why
the
I
older
love
you
the
get,
movies.
it's like
I
do
cry during
too.
commercials sometimes. you know?
It's the ET one.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew it.
Got me.
Oh well.
Boom.
All right. Speaking of crying, leads right into my number one. I think this is, guys. I think this is the best scene of the year. I think it's the best scene in the last.
You also
few
have
years.
Iron Man? Yeah.
But it's a scene. It's already has a lot of memes, and I see it being parodied, and I think it'll be parodied for years to come. But that's because the scene is
it's
so
iconic,
great,
yeah.
and it's already becoming that. I am speaking of what is now being dubbed as the fight scene in Marriage Story. I think already we can agree it's extremely iconic, and this sees Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson finally having this moment where things boil to a point where things are said that maybe needed to be said and other things didn't need to be said, but you had to say them. You had to get this out. And it's an incredibly moving performance. It's probably the best acted scene with two actors going at it to come around in years.
And I agree with that.
If you've been through, a divorce and been through a breakup, a fight like that, it's right on point. It's incredibly moving. For me, I remember seeing it and thinking, wow, I can't believe how good this was done and how great Noah Baumbach did a job of building to that moment in the living room. And a little bit later after that, you get one more great scene in that same living room when he cuts his arm accidentally with the knife.
That is a great scene.
That was almost on my honorable mention.
I'm fine.
Two for the price of one here. But the fight scene in Marriage Story is my number one scene of 2019.
It's phenomenally acted. I hate how quickly it turned into a meme from people who clearly didn't watch the entire movie or, just were like, oh, this would be funny for people who haven't watched it yet. I hate how that has happened, but it's happened. But yeah, almost making my list was the box cutter trick because, oh man, it is so darkly funny.
It is.
Because you feel all that tension of having the I think it's a social worker there.
Yeah,
and you feel all that
she's
tension.
She's a weirdo too.
She is a weirdo.
Right. So uncomfortable.
And then it's like, I'll show you this funny little trick I got. And he's trying to release all the tension of that moment. And then we feel the actual tension of oh my God, what did you just do?
Right. Yeah. He almost passes out from losing all the blood.
Incredible. Really quickly, some honorable mentions.
Yeah.
What do we got here, Mark?
I got the phone call from The Irishman when Frank Sheeran tells the widow who doesn't know she's a widow yet that everything's going to be okay. Mm-hmm. Oh, man. Such a portrayal of pathetic consciencelessness trying to come to terms with itself. Oh, man, it's great. The telltale vomit from Knives Out.
Yeah.
The first time when you learn that's her tell, when she's lying or not telling the truth, that she vomits, and then you find out the hard way. I was just so thoroughly amused that Brian Johnson pulled that off. The reunion in Pain and Glory when Antonio Banderas' character meets up with a long lost lover.
That was nice.
Oh man, it's a great scene.
Was.
I'm hoping Banderas wins Best Actor.
He doesn't got a shot.
He doesn't have a shot, but he is so great in it.
He is.
And that scene is it's just poignant in all the right ways. Saturday Night's All Right from Rocket Man. That was hey, give it to me, all right?
That's the most Grease-like moment of the film.
I know, but it goes full bore musical in that moment, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'm down with this. Mm-hmm. And it was also the moment where I'm like, okay, Taron Egerton, he can do the Elton John singing good enough that I'm not going to miss Elton John's voice in this.
Yeah,
so I really like that scene. And then A Super Family from Shazam.
Wow, I forgot that came out this year. That's right. That was a long time ago.
Yeah, I love that film.
Right,
I love that film, and that was the moment when it's like, I really love what this is saying about family, and that it's not just the people who you're born into, but it's the people that you make it with, and all of them turning into superheroes in that last act. It just filled my heart with joy. I loved it.
I liked that movie a lot too.
Honorables, Matt?
I got a couple. All right. The final shot of Knives Out. All of the family members are in the driveway looking up at Marta, and she's holding this coffee mug that says "My house, my rules." It's just a fantastic little thing. The violence in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when the Manson family finally attacks and they meet Brad Pitt's character. God, I love that quite a bit. And that's about it. What do you got, Ryan?
A couple other ones. I had the pool scene, I call it, from Booksmart.
Yeah, I was going to mention that one
where,
too.
A great follow-through one-shot type of scene where a character jumps into the pool, gets out of the pool, goes into the house, and discovers something. Someone she likes is messing around with someone that somebody else likes, and love that entire moment. The ranch scene, actually, in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when
it's creepy too.
Brad Pitt goes to visit that old studio ranch. I love that part.
Bruce Stern.
Yes. There's a small movie out there, animated movie. It's nominated for Best Animated Movie called I Lost My Body. And I loved this movie. It was my favorite animated film. And I think the way this movie ends, when the two storylines of the hand trying to find the body and how the hand came off and everything comes together, the sound, the music, wonderful scene. I did have the book scene in Little Woman. And the last one to mention is the opening in Ad Astra, where he's on that high top antenna way up, basically in space, and all hell breaks loose and he falls off. What a way.
His heart rate doesn't go up either.
No, it doesn't.
What a way to grip you right into the movie. It's like, we're in for something special here. So
the moon chase in Ad Astra is great.
Also
too.
great,
Yeah, the moon chase was good. And then it just kind of goes off the deep end, guys.
Yeah.
The fight with the pigeon and I lost my body. If I had to pick one scene from that film, that one is like, whoa.
That was good. That was good. All right. If we missed your favorite scene of 2019 and you have Twitter pulled up, shoot us a tweet at Cinemajaw, or you can shoot us an email, feedback@cinemajaw.com. We still have the December riddle to do.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
and
we do.
Oscar nominee movie trivia. Stick with us.
Let's all go to the lobby.
Hey, Jawheads, Matt Kay here in honor of the great Robert Downey Jr., whom we are celebrating all month. We offer up this clip. In the Avengers, in the MCU, Iron Man was played by Robert Downey Jr., perhaps his most iconic role to date. This is his confrontation with the arch-villain Loki from the movie The Avengers.
Actually, I'm planning to threaten you.
You should have left your armor on for that.
Yeah. Seen a bit of mileage, and you've got the glow stick of destiny. Would you like a drink?
Stalling me won't change anything.
No. Threatening. No drink, you sure? I'm having one.
The Chitauri are coming. Nothing will change that. What have I to fear?
The Avengers. That's what we call ourselves. Sort of like a team. Earth's mightiest heroes type thing.
Yes. I've met them.
Yeah. Takes us a while to get any traction, I'll give you that one. But let's do a head count here. Your brother, the demigod. A super soldier, a living legend who kind of lives up to the legend. A man with breathtaking anger management issues. A couple of master assassins, and you, big fella. You've managed to piss off every single one of them.
That was the plan.
Not a great plan. When they come, and they will, they'll come for you.
I have an army.
We have a Hulk.
Oh, I thought the beast had wandered off.
You're missing the point. There's no throne. There is no version of this where you come out on top. Maybe your army comes, and maybe it's too much for us, but it's all on you. Because if we can't protect the Earth, you can be damn well sure we'll avenge it.
The sparkling drinks are just dandy. The chocolate bars and the candy.
Hey, Jawheads. If you're enjoying Mark Dujsik as a guest on this episode, you may want to check out his last appearance on Cinemajaw. He was on episode 193. The topic that week was Top 5 Tom Cruise Scenes. Go to cinemajaw.com for our entire catalog. Enjoy!
And we are back on Cinemajaw, hanging out with Mark Dujsik. His website is Mark Reviews Movies. Go there. How many would you say you average review-wise every week putting out there?
Let's see. Let's just say safely 6.
Wow.
So you could go to Mark Reviews Movies, and each week you're putting out roughly 6 a week reviews.
Yeah.
That
sometimes more.
And these are not short reviews. Well, I mean,
Some of them I had to do that when I started realizing like I'm writing all these. I started doing some shorter ones, but yeah.
But there's still several paragraphs.
Yes.
I mean, we do 1, maybe 2 a week here on Cinemajaw, and we think, oh my God, this is tough sometimes, going back and forth. You want to write this one? I can only imagine doing 6 at a time. Jeez.
Gotta love it.
Yeah.
I love the movies and I love writing.
So markreviewsmovies.com, and then where else can they find you? All the other places.
Twitter at Mark Reviews. Letterboxd, my name, Mark Dujsik, Dujsik. You can check out my byline at rogerebert.com, see the reviews I've written over there. And I feel as if there's something else I'm missing. Oh, Rotten Tomatoes. I'm up there on the tomato meter.
Yes.
Yeah. Tomatometer.
And he looks very different on the tomato. Did you change that picture yet?
No. I had a lot more hair when we last met too.
Keep it.
I'm going to. Remember, it was all wavy and nice. Not so much anymore.
I love it. All right, before we get to trivia and before we get to the riddle, December riddle, we threw a few items into the fish tank, and I know Pat wants to swim up to the top and let us know what we got wrong or needed corrected. Let's open up that fish tank.
Wait a moment! It's fish! Isn't it?
Dujsik! Wake up! Wake up!
No, Pat, it's a giant glass bowl. Hey, get some fish folk.
Who's coming with me besides Flipper? Here.
That's a Sicilian message. It means Luca Brasi sleeps with the fishes.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
All right. This week, there was only 2 questions thrown into the fish tank. The first one was whether or not Two Girls and a Guy is on streaming, and it actually is available for streaming on YouTube, Amazon Prime, iTunes, Google Play, and Vudu.
And Pornhub, but that's a different movie.
Well, I mean, there are a couple of scenes in there. Heather Graham and Natasha Gregson Wagner are in it. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
What are you saying? There's a few scenes that are sort of
risque.
Risque, yeah. There are a couple of risque scenes.
Oh, all right then.
Yeah.
The second question is who directed The Gray Zone, and that actually was Tim Blake Nelson.
Wow. Mark was right on top of it.
I cheated when I did look to make sure that I was right. But yeah, Gray Zone and both. Gray Zone is a fantastic film. Look for that one.
I had no idea. I thought he was sort of like a character actor.
Mm-hmm.
I'd seen a few times, obviously, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou and Buster Scruggs. And no idea.
That was everything, Pat?
Yep.
All right, cool. Get back in there.
Will do.
Matt, we had done riddles all of 2019, and we will be doing them again this year.
Sporadically.
Yes, just a little bit more spread out, but we do owe an answer to the December riddle. We need to pick a winner of that one. So can you remind the Jawheads what the December riddle was,
I
Matt?
will indeed. Here is the December riddle from 2019. Ladies and gentlemen, it goes like this. I am very competitive. In one instance, I had my cousin killed. In another, I had my rival whacked. So pretty, my husband swings on trees for me. So popular, I left my gang. I'm a murdered actress who does not die. Is that clue a little blurry? How ironic. Who am I?
We heard from quite a few Jawheads, one of them being Tim Costa, and he writes out the answers, so I like to read his. He wrote, I'm very competitive. In one instance, I had my cousin killed, and in another, a rival whacked. A nod to 2 films in which she plays very competitive and jealous people, Mary Queen of Scots and I, Tanya. So pretty, my husband swings from trees. So popular, I left my gang. References to The Legend of Tarzan and how she left her gang of Suicide Squad for Birds of Prey. I'm a murdered actress who doesn't die. Is this clue a little blurry? How ironic. These clues point to Tarantino's historical rewrite of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and the movie Focus. The answer of the December riddle is Margot Robbie. Keep up the great work, guys. Tim Costa from the First Time Watchers.
Thanks, Tim.
Yes, it was Margot Robbie. So we put our hand into the hat here and we pull out a winner, and a winner is...
That's a nice hat. Did you get that for Christmas?
The winner is Sean Verma. Nice.
All right.
He's been a winner before. He's got a prize pack. I know it includes a Blu-ray and digital copy of the movie Hustlers, Matt.
Oh, nice.
That we were supposed to mention one more time. So I know that's in there, among other things. But Sean, write us an email and we will get that prize pack mailed out to you. The riddle will be back next month.
Yeah, we'll do one next month. But no comment on the hat thing, Ryan? That is a very nice hat.
Well, I mean...
Was it a gift?
No, I bought this, actually.
I dig it.
You do?
Yeah.
Mark, how's the hat?
It's good.
It is?
I thought you bought it for him for Christmas and we're trying to get him to
No, but you know what? That's a good idea. Maybe next year.
I am wearing a hat, Jawheads. Look at our Instagram when this posts, and you'll see all 3 of us. I will be wearing a hat.
It's a handsome hat, Ryan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Riddle, like I said, be back in February. For now, though, it's trivia time.
All right, Jawheads, it's time once again for Cinema Trivia, where one lucky contestant gets to take on Matt K in the hot seat. Starring your host, Rye the Movie Guy!
Oh, do I love that theme, Matt K.
It's a good one. What a doozy.
Woo! It gets me in the mood to play some trivia. Love it. All right. As Pat mentioned at the top of the show, in honor of the Oscars, we're playing Oscar Nominee Trivia 2020 edition. And I'll give you guys this. I limited it to just the acting nominees. That's it.
Okay.
Mark, you're our guest. You get to choose if you want to go first. Let Matt K go first. There are steals, and if you get hung up on any one of these very difficult questions, you get one trip into the fish tank for Pick Me Up, Pat.
I shall defer.
All right.
Question number 1. I should have said they always start off easy. Question 1.
Well, both the first two are easy. Yeah.
Over to Matt K. Matt, Laura Dern, nominated for Marriage Story, has starred in one film directed by Steven Spielberg. It came out in 1993. Name it.
93 Spielberg. That's Laura Dern starring. Holy crap, dude. I feel like I should know this like right off the top of my head. Oh, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park. Whoa.
Wow. Oh, I thought you were going to give me that.
1-0, Matt K. Question 2. Over to Mark Dujsik. Mark, Leonardo DiCaprio, nominated for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, has starred in only one film directed by Steven Spielberg. It came out in 2002. Name it.
Catch Me If You Can.
That one's easier than...
Was it
they were
Jurassic Park?
Yeah. They're both pretty easy. I don't know why I couldn't remember.
1-1. Question 3, back over to Matt K. Matt, fellow nominees Antonio Banderas for Pain and Glory and Tom Hanks for Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood have appeared in one film together. It came out in 1993. Name it. Antonio Banderas and Tom Hanks.
Philadelphia. Jesus. Oof.
Oh.
Man,
it took you longer to figure out Jurassic Park than Philadelphia.
Did it?
It did.
Pretty equal timing.
2-1, Matt K. Question 4 over to Mark. Speaking of Antonio Banderas, he and fellow nominee Brad Pitt have only appeared in one film together. It came out in 1994. Name it.
Ooh.
Illustrious careers when you think of it. Antonio Banderas and Brad Pitt. They've been in one movie together, and it came out in 1994.
Ooh. This is one of the easier ones, too. Now I'm scared.
Well, they're getting harder as we go along. It's only 8 questions. You do have a lifeline.
I'm going to use the lifeline already.
Whoa!
Because I'm nervous.
Whoa. Lifeline on question number 4 into the fish tank for Pick Me Up, Pat. Pat, what was the name of that Antonio Banderas Brad Pitt movie?
Your clue for this one is this one has some bite.
This one has some bite.
It has some bite. This one has some bite. Oh no, I'm in trouble here. This one has some bite. Antonio Banderas and Brad Pitt. Oh no. 94. Oh no. Oh no.
Clock ticking. We're down to 5 seconds.
Oh no. Oh no. I can't see Matt's face.
We need to guess.
It doesn't matter. I'm going to lose it, so I give up.
Oh,
Matt,
Mark,
you got a chance for a steal
I know
here.
it, dude.
Does the clue help
The clue
also?
helps me totally. The clue helped me totally. I'm sorry, dude. It's Interview with a Vampire.
Oh, jeez. Oh.
Wow.
Oh. I was thinking sharks. I was thinking oh.
You didn't think vampire?
No, I did not think vampire.
That would have cracked it wide open.
It would have if I. Oh.
What a swing of events here. You see what happened here. 3-1 Matt K, and question 5 is over to him.
Oh.
Wow. Matt.
Ow.
Scarlett Johansson, double nominee. Jojo Rabbit and Marriage Story.
I hope she wins.
Appeared with Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman in one film. Name it.
Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman?
Mm-hmm.
That's was it Les Miserables?
Mark can climb right back into this one and make a game. Do you know what movie Scarlett Johansson appeared in with Christian Bale and Hugh Jackman?
My poker face is terrible. The Prestige.
Wow, I forgot she was in The Prestige.
Wow.
Yep, she was the assistant.
Wow. What a turn of events we have here. It is 3-2, and question 6 now is over to Mark Dujsik. Mark, Joaquin Phoenix played a fireman in 2004 film Ladder 49. Who co-starred in the film playing Deputy Chief Mike Kennedy?
That was John Travolta?
We are all tied. We are all tied. What a ball game.
We're getting a game here.
2 questions left. Matt does have his lifeline. Matt, question 7 is to you.
Okay.
Name the Oscar nominee from this year that has starred in the following movies: Cinderella Man, Leatherheads, Case 39, and The Whole Truth.
I'm going to go ahead and jump into the fish tank here for Pick Me Up Pat.
Whoa, we go for a Pick Me Up Pat. Pat, what Oscar nominee starred in Cinderella Man, Leatherheads, Case 39, and The Whole Truth?
Your clue for this one? You had me at Pick Me Up Pat. You had me at Pick Me Up Pat.
Renee Zellweger.
What a clue. And his delivery is just fantastic.
You could say it had some bite. Like a shark.
Yeah, like a shark movie with Antonio Banderas.
All right, let me set the stage here. Matt has completed all 4 of his questions. This is great. It's 4-3. You can tie it up here or let Matt win. Last question.
No pressure.
Over to Mark.
Okay.
Saoirse Ronan, nominated for Little Women, has made 1 film with Mark Wahlberg. It came out in 2009. Name the movie. I mean, how about some credit here for writing these wonderful questions?
Oh, man.
You do your research.
You take it for granted.
I'm just curious where Mark Wahlberg came from with Oscar nominees this year.
Well, I needed to throw a tough question in at 8.
Well, yeah, that would do it. Oh, man.
Saoirse Ronan has made 1 film with Mark Wahlberg. It came out in 2009. Name it. Lifelines, both gone here.
The Yards. Yeah.
Matt, you got to guess. You've won this one 4-3, but you got to guess.
Okay, so Jesus, man, 2009, Saoirse Ronan. She must have been like 10 years old. She's very young.
She is.
Wahlberg. I don't know, man. Was he in The Town? That's my guess. No.
We forget about this one. It doesn't come up much on the podcast either. The Lovely Bones. The Lovely Bones.
Mark Wahlberg's in there?
He's the father.
That's right, he is. Man,
Yes.
that's a terrible movie. That's the first time I thought of
Peter
Lovely
Jackson
Bones.
directed it. I read the book, and the book was excellent.
Yeah, the book is really good.
She plays the girl who goes into the afterlife, and it's Mark Wahlberg plays her
man.
father.
How old is she in the during the production?
Probably 14, 15. She's like a teenager.
Yeah,
man.
So
maybe she's older than
The
I
first
thought.
time I thought about The Lovely Bones since I saw The Lovely Bones.
yeah,
A terrible
I think
movie.
Saoirse Ronan is 25. So
Okay, no, that makes sense.
yeah. Wow, Matt wins this one. Can I get a handshake here? What a great ball
job.
game that was, though.
Good
Very
job.
tense. If it came down to a tie, we call it a jawbreaker. This question would have been over to Mark Dujsik. Better lead performance this year: Adam Driver in Marriage Story or Joaquin Phoenix in Joker?
And this is your subjective opinion?
This is the jawbreaker, buddy.
Or it's just the accept
there's
the truth.
there's an
that
empirical
it's Adam
answer.
Driver in Marriage Story.
We would have gave that to him. The real jawbreaker was this: age of Renee Zellweger closest to. Matt?
Renee Zellweger is timeless, right? She, okay. Jerry Maguire was in the 90s, and she was probably in her late 20s. I'm going to say she is 51 years old.
Lock him in at 51. Mark, you got a guess?
I'm going to say 48.
Give that one to Matt K. 50.
Man, I almost said
You guys were
49.
right on
I should have
top of it.
split the difference.
I was actually going to say 50, but then I thought maybe
Yeah.
she just crossed it. So.
I like that we both had, I was doing the same math in my head. Jerry Maguire was 96. So.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. As always, brings us to the end of a great jaw. And first and foremost, we got to thank our guest, Mark. Thanks for coming back on Cinemajaw.
Thanks for having me back.
So it's been a blast.
It's been great.
We also got to thank our producer, the man behind the glass, producer Pat.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's been a good time.
Matt, we also got to thank our sponsors.
Yes, thanks to Overcast and the Chicago Podcast Co-op who help us get cool sponsors like them.
Yes, if you want to support Cinemajaw, the easiest way to do so is by leaving us a review wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Yeah, and while you're at it, click subscribe. One little extra button, and it helps us out a lot.
Until next week, I'm Ryan, the movie guy.
I'm Matt Kay, and keep on jawing about the movies.